Patrick Henningsen talks on today's News Talk Radio, TNT.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this live broadcast. I'm Patrick Henningsen, your host. We're in hour number 2 here, live and direct. We're going to be talking to a couple of incredible guests in the next hour. One of them I want to welcome immediately onto the stage. I want to welcome Clarisse Wiydorven, who's joining us right now. She is from Global Insights. Clarisse is from Africa. She's from the Republic of Cameroon, and she is a geopolitical analyst and a journalist. She's also got extensive experience on the ground in Donbass, looking closely at the Ukrainian conflict. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the upcoming elections there, and we'll also talk about BRICS. I want to welcome her onto the stage right now. Clarisse, thank you for joining us.
Hello, Patrick. Thank you so much for inviting me on today's program. It is indeed very imperative that we contribute in such programs, which are in turn to change the narratives around the global world, especially as things are changing, dynamics are changing quite well. Yeah, I'm from the Republic of Cameroon, to be precise, and host of the TV program Global Insight, and we actually give insightful discuss into the developments around the world, particularly geopolitical development. And I want to appreciate you for inviting me today, and it's a pleasure. Hoping that we'll have a fruitful discussion, pertaining topic for discussion this day. Thank you again, Patrick.
Oh, thank you, Clarisse. And Clarisse, it was brought to my attention, which is something I had no idea, but you are one of the first. You were one of the first journalists, international journalists on the ground in Donbass when hostilities broke out in February of 2022. You were literally, one of the first few journalists in there. Tell us about I want to hear about your experience. First of all, how did you come into that situation, and tell us what you witnessed. Tell us about your experience there on the ground with the beginning of Russia's special military operation and what's known in the West as the Ukraine conflict. Go ahead, Clarisse.
Thank you again, Patrick, for this opportunity. Of course, it's, as a journalist and being intentional about actually imparting the global world with objectivity. It was some sort of a milestone for me, especially coming from Africa. During the start of the special military operation, many people, especially from where I'm coming from, Africa, they don't know the events which have been unfolding, and the propaganda coming from Western media, it tinted the whole scenario regarding the role of Russia in the Ukrainian crisis, as it's called, like you said, by the Western media. So this in 2023, actually, it was a great opportunity, first of all, to appraise the situation on the ground as a journalist, and also in the context of an observer, to try to understand how elections are being conducted in a region at war. So it was actually something which I will commend largely, and actually thank, first of all, the organizers for giving me this opportunity to appraise the situation. And it was actually worthwhile, because after experience in Donbass, we were able to come out with a documentary, The Realities of Donbass. And this documentary presented the genesis of the crisis, dating back to the 2014 coup d'etat, the events that unfolded that led us to the 2022, where the people called for a referendum, and we saw them voting to join the road to go back. Let me not say the part of Russia, the Russian Federation. And to think that when it comes to elections, it's all about the will of the people, what the people want. So this opportunity on the field, that is now in 2023, as an election observer, it gave me the opportunity to discuss with the citizens of the Donbass, and particularly I was in Donetsk. I visited the cities of, I was in Mariupol as well, and looking at how devastated the town was as a result of the shelling coming largely from the Ukrainian side, backed by the West. It became worrisome that people you consider yours, you will unleash on them. And it even gave me a reason to see why the Russian Federation had to intervene, to intervene to protect the civilians. And there on the field, discussing with them, it gave me another side of history that is actually hidden from the other part of the world. And on the African media, there was some sort of sensitization of bringing the objectivity of what is happening in the Donbass, where we saw, I often say that when a people's cry for inclusion falls on deaf ears, action for sovereignty and democracy takes a central stage. And I think this is what actually happened there in the Donbass, where the people were fed up with the marginalization coming from the Ukrainian government, and they thought it wise to actually go back to motherland. These are the words of some of the voters I engaged with. He said, "We are happy today that we are going back and joining the Russian Federation. We love peace, we love unity, and we are happy that we will be finally united to the Russian Federation." These are the words of a voter. You saw the zest among the people showed really well that this is the will of the people counting. It is different from what the mainstream media will report as people are under duress to cast their vote. They're being forced at gunpoint to vote and to declare what they don't want. But this, it's contrary to what actually I witnessed on the field. That was September 2023, from the 8th to the 10th of September. And I must commend the Russian Federation for the great milestone. Not actually, this is not propaganda. It's always said that to understand the stakes of situations, it is imperative that you visit the terrain. And as a journalist, I was able to brave the odds, the fear of the unknown. You could lose your life and everything, but that wasn't a problem. And I think from that time to today, narratives have changed, and it has helped to even sensitize the African population. And that is why you see that even today with the propaganda, there is misinformation and disinformation coming from mainstream media. The African audience is burnt on seeing that they continue to build the strong relationship or partnership they want to engage with the Russian Federation, because they have understood the stakes of the Ukrainian crisis, understood why it was necessary for the Russian Federation to engage. It is a war for the fight of the sovereignty and the will of the people, I think.
Clarisse, just, if you can explain to us, the elections in Africa, your experience with African elections, and compare that to your experience with Russian elections, and specifically in the new territories, as they call them, in the Donbass, and in that sort of the region formerly Novorossiya, formerly Ukraine. now independent republics within the Russian Federation. But yeah, give us your kind of assessment, Clarisse, of things that you observe in your experience with African elections, and then compare that to what you have witnessed in the Donbass. But go ahead.
Thank you once again, Patrick, for this opportunity. Actually, I smiled. Why? Because, I usually say that what is applicable in Zone A may not work in Zone B. But it is imperative, Africa is, though independent, but then when you look at what is happening, the continent has witnessed some political strides, but then there is still a question of what African democracy it's all about, and in the context of election observation, and of course, bringing it back to the 2023 elections that I witnessed in the Donbass, precisely in Donetsk, I will say there was a lot, to be frank, as far as election. The organizing of election is concerned in Africa, and from what I noticed in the Donbass, the way the electoral college organized everything, and the electorate did not have so much pressure, because you're coming to the voting or the polling station, you already know the directives, the guidelines, what you have to do. Never did I witness an instance where a voter will come and will I am not seeing my name on the voter list. I don't know where should I proceed or whatsoever. It was well organized, and everything went so well, transparent, and I can categorically say that it was transparent and fair and lesser and free from some interference and so on and so forth, which we commend in a region at war. Organizing an election of such a magnitude, it's equally something commendable, and taking us to the African continent, the experience. I would say I wouldn't want to actually compare the two scenarios, because they are two different entities. But what I will say is Africa has recorded strides so far in a level of election organization and trying to work according to the universal principles of democracy, and which is so we talk here about transparency, the fairness, and the way the polls are conducted. Aside the fact that voters in Africa sometimes, bringing in new voting processes like maybe online voting is still a problem, but that was very flexible in Donetsk. People could vote online without any problem. I think it all has to do with the level of development, technological development, and it's a gradual process, and with the Russian Federation actually engaging more with the African countries. Later, I think it's going to bring a milestone in the not actually infringing, because when you say this, people will feel like Russia is coming to infringe in the democratic or internal process of a sovereign country. No, this is not what I'm trying to say. Just being an advanced country in terms of technology, it will help African nations in the election organization of elections, so that they can go freely without instances of, frustration coming from electorates, because it's actually for the will of the people that elections are organized. So it's quite something that I will see in the nearest future. I think African countries, in terms of election organization, can compete with the rest of the world, but then particularizing elections in a conflict zone like Donetsk, it's something that we can commend the Russian Federation for organizing such an election that even give those with disability the privilege to exercise their democratic rights. The Electoral College made it in such a way that people could walk and go to the homes of these disabled people to ensure that they cast their ballots. It's something that is worth mentioning in the context of election organization in a region like Donetsk or Donbass.
Yeah, so they do give a number of options. I know in a war zone, especially when you have places that are literally coming under fire, especially
Absolutely.
in Donetsk, to have some different options. Obviously, we had our previous guest, Russell Texas Bentley, talk about being able to cast your paper ballot in person in some of the districts, but then also they're offering this kind of secure online voting for people that for whatever reason they can't physically make it to the polls. So this is kind of unusual. Certainly they haven't even tried this in a lot of countries yet. So they're experimenting with that, developing these options because of the conflict in Donbass. So that's an interesting part that I hadn't heard before about the online voting. So it's definitely something to have a very good look at. And yeah, so interesting.
Just to mention this, Patrick, I left out, when they're talking about voting, when voters cast their ballot in full security, there is that contentment inside of them. This is just to counteract what you must have seen on maybe newspapers coming from, the Western media and other anti-Russian journals talking about people being forced to vote. That is not it. The presence of the military was instead to ensure security, because these elections were holding in a region that is at war, and it was just utmost and sensible to ensure that the security of every voter, and even those ensuring the electoral process and the presence of international experts and observers on the field to permit them to carry on their work objectively. There was total security, with the level of shelling that we have been seeing so far coming from these regions at war. One could be like, if I dare to go on the field, I may not come back. But I was walking so freely. At one moment, I forgot that I was in a crisis zone because of how secured the atmosphere was during that elections. And that is just to emphasize on the fact that it was not just about voters going to exercise this democratic process, but they ensured, the organizers or the Electoral College, together with the Russian Federation, ensured that this process was done in total and utmost security. The elections represented a great historic moment for the Russian Federation.
No, it's pretty incredible conditions, incredible story, and your work as well, Clarisse. You've been a real trailblazer on the ground there, and we want to also point people to your programs on YouTube as well. She's also broadcasting in multiple languages, of course, French, as well as some work in English as well. And I do believe you're fluent in Russian, aren't you, Clarisse?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
You're fluent in Russian as well.
Oh, unfortunately, but when you're intentional about whatever thing you're doing, you understand the language. And I think it's not always about the words, but then the emotions, in communication, you can understand people even when you don't get their language. From the emotions expressed, you can easily tell what is there and what is not there.
And you're the host of Global Insights, Clarisse Wiydorven. I really appreciate your time and joining us on TNT this week. Much appreciated.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Of course, Global Insight aligns, of course, with your radio program. It is time for us to change the narratives around the world and take the world of communication to another level where we engage in giving objective information that will not deter the mindset of the innocent. We talk to millions of audiences out there, so it is imperative to bring forth objective news that will counteract the propaganda surrounding every aspect, especially when it comes to Russia,
Well, we look forward to hopefully having a conversation with you in the future. I want to talk about BRICS and so many other issues, especially to do with Africa and the new kind of changing multipolar global order. Hopefully we'll have that conversation in the future with Clarisse Wiydorven. There she goes, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a break here, and on the other side, we're going to connect our legal correspondent in the United States, Matthew Russell Lee, on the ground in New York for the latest there. Looking forward to that. I'm your host, Patrick Henningsen. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Speaking on the issues that impact. This is the Patrick Henningsen Show on TNT Radio.